Hello and welcome to another edition of the Review of Champions. I'm your host, the immortal Lord Deathman, and in this episode, we're discussing thoughts, theories, opinions, and we're going to do some analysis of Moon Knight Episode 4, The Friendly Type. This week's episode moves the action to Egypt and it gathers the avatars of the Innead. I hope I said that correctly, the Egyptian pantheon of gods. Mark is put on trial, and Stephen and Layla have to learn the ancient world's version of GPS. It's quite a thrilling scene if you haven't seen the episode before. And of course, they get it done with a bit of help from everyone's favorite moon god. So be careful for spoilers. And as always, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button if you're into what we're doing here. It really helps the channel. And with that said, I'm going to immediately turn our attention to the arena because we have a lot of champions here today. Huge guests, powerful panel here. So I'm just going to quickly say your name, guys. Give a wave, give a shout, do your thing, and then we'll get started. Grandmaster.
Good evening.
Taylor.
Hello.
Hey, Biz, how you doing?
Hello.
Merv, welcome back.
You.
And Lokismom, how are you doing today?
Oh, pretty good, pretty good.
All right. So 5 champions in the arena. This is probably going to be a very thrilling show. So you're definitely going to want to stay tuned in for this one. Now that we've gotten introductions out of the way, I'm going to go around the table and do some quick takes, your spiciest, hottest take right off the top of your head of what you thought of episode 4. And I'm going to start the proceedings off with the Grandmaster.
Excellent episode. Really got into the chase to Amit's tomb, and I really liked it. A lot to talk about, but we do that later.
Yeah, it does seem like the critics were a little off base, saying that the show kind of slowed down or did some downturn as it went along. Not really feeling that at all. So glad to see that you were into the episode, Grandmaster. Thanks for that. Taylor, what was your take on the episode?
Overall, I really liked the episode. I liked the action scenes. I liked the setting, of course, in Egypt. There was a couple of things that I didn't really like that much, but we'll get into all of that. But overall, another good episode.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to hearing some of your deltas, but we'll circle back to that in just a minute. Biz, welcome back to the show. It's been a little bit of a hiatus for you. Tell us what you thought of episode 4, Moon Knight.
Yeah, glad to be back. Yeah, it's been a while. So with the episode, it was great. It's everything that you wanted in that episode. There's like action, adventure, mystery. Overall a good episode. That's why I was a bit stunned that you thought that the critics weren't really happy with it. So I was just wondering what happened there with them.
Yeah, like what went wrong? I mean, I'm totally with you here. We get a deepening of the mythology. We get all of the avatars of the Egyptian pantheon of gods. It's like the people are opening portals from one place to another, digs in the desert. Even a brand new character gets introduced here. So I'm just as much as a loss with the whole critical review of this thing as you are. But again, we will circle back and do a deep dive into that later on in the show. Merv, what was your thinking on this episode?
I thought it was a great balance of character exploration and moving the plot, or more expanding the plot, I guess, not really moving it that much forward. But I watched it twice, and I felt thoroughly engaged both times.
Yeah. What was it that made you watch it twice? Were you just looking for Easter eggs, or did you just really feel like it was that good?
Well, I watched it when it aired, or whenever it first released a few days ago, and I rewatched it today, mostly for a brush up, but also just to see if it held up after just a couple of days, watching it a second time. But I thought it was great. I thought it was a really good episode.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't perfect for my money. There were, slight cosmetic blemishes, but certainly not enough to take me out of the series or the episode at large. Really thrilling climax, by the way. I really enjoyed that. Yeah. And Lokismom, can you tell us what you thought of this episode?
It was really good. I thought may have been a little bit more exposition in it because there's a lot of going on. Layla, we find out a lot more about her and what she's up to, and she's more than she seems. Has seemed in the first 2 episodes. Yeah, and overall, I think it was pretty good. Yeah, I had a couple of little issues with it, but I think those issues might be on purpose.
Okay. As in some things that probably didn't make sense or feel like loose ends that they might tie up as the series goes along?
Real, some, I'm going to say corny scenes.
Corniness.
I thought the
Okay.
whole thing where they're in the I guess they're supposed to be in the top part of the Pyramid of Giza, and how come that room hasn't showed up on Ancient Aliens yet? I don't know, but anyway, yeah, I thought that was really staged, hokey looking, and it kind of reminded me a little bit of, if you go back to the Loki series, when they finally get into the Timekeeper's chamber.
Right, the throne room.
And that was just an artifice. It just come to find out it was just a stage set. And the reality was beyond that. So I'm thinking it might be something going along those lines, but we'll talk about that later.
Okay, that's fair. And you're not the only one to bring up the criticism that, ironically enough, it was another woman YouTuber critic that brought up the criticism that the interior settings of that pyramid sort of looked like a set. It really looked a bit too new, probably not lived in. But I'm thinking that, the pantheon of Egyptian gods weren't going to go into a dilapidated version of the interior of a pyramid. They probably wanted to look as new as it did when it was first built. But I hear what you're saying, and we are going to touch upon that in a little more detail when we come back around and do the deeper analysis. Which, now that we have initial reactions out of the way, I want to say it's a mixed panel here, but mostly we're getting praise for this episode, with some people alluding to some minor issues. And now we're going to go into the deeper analysis, starting with you, Biz. What stood out to you in this episode? And if there was anything wrong with it, do you think you can share that with us today?
Well, on the top of my head, I can't really pinpoint any criticism. Maybe it'll come back to me later. But yeah, overall, it was a fantastic episode. Like straight out of the gate, like easily a 9 out of 10 for me. Maybe I'm doing that a bit too early, but yeah, like
we'll get to ratings, but spoilers. We just did a rating here, but go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, there was nothing that I could find faults with it. Like, I mean, like you, like I said, it had a bit of everything: action, adventure, mystery. It was like Indiana Jones, basically an episode. Obviously, like we were promised Egypt from the last episode, like at the ending, we got Egypt. So with Egypt, you expect that kind of like mystery angle to it, adventure and all that. And then that's what it pretty much gave to us. That's what you expect when you go into Egypt, like a new kind of foreign country. But yeah, like so it's like you have that kind of classic like adventure style where they go and find something. Obviously, they were after like a certain like I think they were looking for the location of that tomb. They met up with this kind of mysterious character, like where they had that Layla had a past with. It was in a way it was kind of cliche, but I liked it the way it was done. Like I don't know, it just appeals to me. There's kind of like adventure kind of like episodes or movies. Like yeah, I really liked it. So there's no real fault with it. The gods, yeah, again, that was interesting. Like you could see that they're going. But the thing is, I do actually have a slight flaw with that, because they were a bit too quick to believe. What's that guy's name? Ethan Hawke's character. Yeah, like it's like okay, fair enough. The guy was banished or whatever in the past, but the thing is, like, why would you trust this guy so like completely? It's like no investigation. Like it was like you're guilty, done.
Right? Aren't you guys gods? What's
exactly,
going on
like,
here?
Yeah, it's like, but yeah, apart from that, I really enjoyed the episode.
Yeah, and you mentioned Gaspar Ulliels. I hope I said his name correctly, playing the Midnight Man. They don't call him that in the episode, but he is based on a villain from the Moon Knight pantheon. I think the character's name, though, was Anton in the show. I thought, and rest in peace to Gaspar. He died in a tragic skiing accident shortly before the show actually went on the air. But that being said, as a final performance here, I think he did a pretty good job of bringing some interest and a new dynamic to the show. Was that your feeling?
Yeah, he definitely. Oh, the guy who like that horse rider, that character.
The guy in the red robe.
Yeah, okay, yeah, he definitely brought it. I definitely brought him like as the character. Yeah, he definitely did his job. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it seemed like he was building a platform in which we could have enjoyed seeing that character maybe in another season or some future episodes. But again,
I mean, he looked like a douchebag, and he acted like one. So
yeah. Which Gaspar, you could argue that based on his past au revoir, to use another French word, that he's pretty good at doing that. We all know him from Hannibal Rising. I think that's his most popular role.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I know him from a commercial.
Oh, okay. I want to say, right.
No, some kind of fragrance commercial.
I knew it. I knew it was either going to be like hairspray or perfume with this guy. I knew it.
Bleu de Chanel, if you want to know.
There we go. But Grandmaster, thank you so much, Biz, for giving us your analysis and breakdown on the episode. I'm going to turn to Grandmaster now to sort of get your deeper thinking on the episode. Ups, downs, sideways. What do you got for us?
I agree with the criticism from Biz that those gods were a little bit too quick to believe Arthur Harrow, but maybe there's something going on there. Don't know. Maybe he's manipulating them with the help of Amit. I don't know. So let's wait and see before we tear the show apart.
He might even have allies amongst the avatars. You never know.
It could very well be. Again, Oscar Isaac, his performance is amazing. That transition from Mark Spector to Stephen Grant in the desert when he was constructing the star chart. That was great. And we obviously got confirmation there's a third identity at work, because Mark wakes up while he's killing a guy at a certain moment, and he asks Stephen, "What did you do?" And Stephen confirms it wasn't him. So who was it then? Well, if you probably Jake Lockley.
Right. That is the popular thinking that we're dealing with a third personality here.
Yeah.
And if it is Jake Lockley, this is a very exciting, new and different take on the character, for sure.
Apparently, he is the brutal one. We would just have to wait and see how that plays out. But it's obvious there's a third identity at play. I wonder. Earlier in the series, they had a remark where they say, when Khonshu say to Mark, "When I found you, you were nothing but a corpse or a body," or something like that.
Right.
And when Khonshu gets locked up in the stone, Mark, Stephen, actually at that moment, seems to be lifeless. So I'm wondering what's going on there, but we will see that in episode 4, of course. But I noticed that, and overall, I really, really, really enjoyed the episode. Great action scene at Anton's house, with great effects. Even when Ethan Hawke's character Arthur Harrow did his thing, where the sarcophagus. So I'm not gonna break my tongue over that word.
The sarcophagus.
Yes, exactly. Broke down. I really like the look of Moon Knight in that action scene, and The switch to Mr. Knight was incredibly funny, and then he immediately gave the body back. I really got the Deadpool vibes again from Mr. Knight. I think it's a Deadpool type character, and I'm gonna die on that hill. Overall, I really enjoyed the episode. Not much criticism. I agree with that stuff with Lokismom that it looks a little bit cheap. And maybe a little bit too
the gathering place
clean, but then again, they're gods. They probably have some cleaning service arranged. So I'm not too bothered with that. But overall, I want to mention the scene where Khonshu changed, with the help of Mr. Knight, changed the sky. It really looked like somebody was browsing through browsing through a computer history or something to find the exact moment where he needs to reboot or something like that. But I really
dialing it up.
I really enjoyed that. That looked amazing, by the way. That scene. There may have been some dodgy CGI before the show. I wasn't too convinced, by the way, by the rooftop fight in the beginning of the episode. I also felt a little bit too green screeny, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
But that really stood out to me. That scene where they changed the sky, and that looked amazing. And I forgive them then for a little bit of dodgy CGI if they also do it like this.
Yeah, we may have reached some kind of a choke point with the Disney Plus series in terms of the visual effects. And they're definitely picking their battles in terms of what they want to spend money on VFX-wise in this particular series, and they're picking the right spots as far as I'm concerned. But thank you for that searching commentary on the episode. I'm going to turn to Merv now for your deep dive and analysis on it. How did you feel about it? Highs, lows, and anything in between?
I guess mostly highs. Big highs for me were Layla getting more screen time and actually feeling like an actual character in the show, as opposed to episode 2. I thought she just felt very generic to me, like standard, female companion. But here, she gets a little bit of backstory, more hinting at stuff that has happened in her past. She gets that whole intro scene where she's getting a passport. She just felt very developed in this episode in particular. The fluidity with Mark and Steven transitioning comfortably back and forth now, I like that a lot. Like, it seems like they're almost on the same page, not quite, but they're almost on the same page. And now, obviously, the monkey wrench of a third, personality at least, is like, well, now they're against one of their other, sides in it. It's an interesting dynamic that I'm enjoying. I just like everything from I thought, I've heard people say that the trial scene, for lack of a better word, whenever they're all the gods are together, that kind of slid the pace down a lot. But I was really invested in that. Like, it didn't expand much, but just to see all the gods there, like, lined up, like, weighing in on it, I enjoyed that just from a this is a thing perspective. Assuming it's real, obviously you don't know what to trust in the show, but assuming it's all legitimate and actually happening, I do think there is a lot of shades of deception in. Maybe I'm looking too hard for it, but I feel like there's so much that people aren't saying that I'm just picking up. Maybe I'm looking too hard for it, but especially with the other gods, like, I feel like there's definitely more there than just like. They're not neutral in this. I feel like they're definitely not neutral, at least not all of them.
Right.
In a big thing from this episode that I really noticed the second time through was I got so many mixed vibes from Khonshu in this whole episode. Like, he seems to have a plan that he's not telling Mark at this point. You know what I mean? Like, I got like he was hesitant to call on the gods, and then like 2 seconds later he calls on them, and then after that he just he makes the decision to become a stone statue and depower Mark altogether. But he thinks Mark can break him out,
right?
And then
right,
and I don't know how that's going to happen, but he apparently knows something. he's just not telling us, you know. So there's so many question marks still. And then the other thing was whenever they mentioned the ability, or like if you know what the sky was like 2,000 years ago, whenever he says like I remember every night, he sounded so sad there, and I just wonder if there's more to that, or if it was just like I feel like it was a voice acting choice to make him sound like very morose and like I remember every night, like very sad. And I was like, that doesn't sound like Khonshu from the first 2-3 episodes up to this point. So is there more to
his
that?
Nose.
Yeah, exactly. You know, he's like telling him to go slaughter people, and now he's just like, I remember every night, just really sad. And it just stuck out like a sore thumb to me. Like, there's more there, you know.
Well, they've got an incredible voice actor on Khonshu in F. Murray Abraham, just sort of this international treasure, Oscar-winning actor. If anyone could turn a sociopathic god into a nuanced character, it would be him.
Right.
So I totally feel you, though. There was some solemnness there, some sadness there when he was remembering the night. So maybe there's a connection between him and Amit that we're not aware of just yet.
Yeah. I'm also again, this is probably just me being paranoid, but I'm starting to question whether Amit is the villain. Like, not, you know, whether or not that this thing that they're trying to do is actually release Amit, or if it's something totally different that we're just not able to see. And, you know, I just think it's interesting that the show is making me ask these questions, like, just because of its fluctuation in reality the whole time, you know?
Right. Yeah, well, thank you so much for that commentary, Merv. I tend to agree with you all the way. The show does have this way of making you question everything that's actually going on, and they've picked that up very successfully from the way the modern version of Moon Knight comic books work. You've got a guy this guy could be totally insane and not really be a superhero, and he could just be running around the streets beating people to a pulp because he's mentally ill. Or this all could be happening, or something in between. So it's kind of it's a nice place speculation wise to be able to be, you know, that creative and not go too far out and not, you know, think that there are going to be any surprises. So yeah, I think they've calibrated this show speculation wise very, very beautifully. So, but thanks again. I'm going to move on to Taylor to get your ups, downs, and betweens on the episode. What did you think?
Well, I really liked the action and the whole feel of the episode. I loved the rooftop fight and the whole chase scene with the personalities switching throughout it. I thought it was really well done. I thought the actual fight choreography was really good. I also liked the big scene with the sarcophagus and the guys on the horses and everything, and that was very, very pulpy. You know, like the other guys mentioned, this felt a lot like Indiana Jones or James Bond. And again, it felt very pulpy, and I'm okay with that. I'm a huge fan of pulp. But like, for just like one example, one thing that I thought about in that scene was they shot him, the bullets bounce off, then they poke sticks into him and they go right through him. So what is it about these sticks, right?
Right.
but that's okay, because that's pulp. Okay, that's pulpy. You can ignore that stuff for the sake of that's a really cool action scene, you know, and it's really awesome. So I'm okay with all that. It's a comic book. Where I had a little problem with the episode, and I kind of agree with what Biz said about the whole trial scene. Remind me to never hire Khonshu to be my lawyer if I'm ever going to court, okay? He summons the gods and has no plan whatsoever once they show up. He apparently even forgets how to speak. Doesn't even mention the scarab. There's a clue that the guy's trying to find Ahmed or whatever. And then Arthur walks in. Hey, I was just walking around the desert. Everybody walks around the desert. Oh, yeah. Yeah, everybody walks around the desert.
I'm just hanging out.
With 100 guys digging holes. That's no crime. And the reason, and one of the reasons it bugged me is because I've seen scenes exactly like that in other shows and movies where they finally get the chance to present their case to the authorities, whether it's in a court or whatever, and they become blithering idiots.
Right.
And they forget to tell them anything, and they let the other guy talk over them. And then we want to hear from Mark. Okay, great. Let's bring in Mark. Suddenly Mark's a blithering idiot who can't speak anymore. and then he says, if you would just listen for a minute. And then the judge said, yeah, we're done here. We're not going to listen. We're done here. He's innocent. Case closed. Bye.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that bugged me a little bit, that whole scene. Not the set. The set, I didn't have any problems with the set. But yeah. You go to court, man. Have a plan. You should have had your folder to present your stuff to Judge Wapner in the people's court there. And you should have remembered that the guy killed several people and stole the scarab, and now he's digging in the desert. Forgot to let that part out. You know, it helps to have some evidence. You're trying to convict someone of trying to destroy the world or whatever.
Yeah, they should add Judge Wapner to the Egyptian pantheon of gods. Just make Wapner the avatar of Wapner shows up.
Right. He may have been an Egyptian god. I don't know.
It could have also done with
that was my only problem with it. Overall, like I said, love the pulpiness, love the action. The acting, of course, is spectacular. The visuals, like when they were on the boat on the river. Beautiful with the purple lighting,
stunning,
and everything. All great, and the horses with the fancy saddles and everything, just gorgeous. And the scenes running through the streets in Egypt. Not obviously it's a movie, or excuse me, it's a TV show. It's not going to be 100%, but compared to some other shows and movies I've seen set in like the Middle East and stuff like that, much closer to reality, or at least the feel of the real world. So again, overall, really liked it.
Yeah, great episode. And one of the things that you touched on in terms of the gullibility of the Egyptian pantheon of gods, I think that is a legit criticism. Those guys really do need to work on their critical thinking skills so that they don't get taken in by guys like Harrow in the future. But thank you so much, Taylor, for your commentary on this. And last but certainly not least, I want to circle back to Loki's mom. You alluded to some issues that you had with this episode. Now's your chance to sort of expand on that a little bit and tell us what you enjoyed about it as well.
Oh, what I enjoyed about it, I actually wrote it down. I enjoyed it so much. The lady, who's helping Layla, apparently she knows Layla's father. She knows the whole story, and she's somebody in deep background here. There's the third person who is possessing Mark Stephen's body. So that's a question mark there. Possibility that's Layla's father, since he was there at the excavation. Apparently they were all there when all this Khonshu arose up out of the misty outer void or wherever he was at to planet Earth. And she says, the lady says, exhuming the pain of the past it is easy to get stuck, fixated on what hurts us. And then at the very last scene where we see Arthur Harrow, he speaks to that when he's cursing or speaking to Khonshu as he's in the little statue now. He says, my greatest, to the effect, he said, my greatest sin was that I enjoyed the pain that I inflicted on your behalf. And then remember the torment. Remember your torment forged me. So I think we're dealing with some deep pain here, deep psychic pain, spiritual pain that's going on with these characters.
There's a vendetta going on. Harrow really has it in for Khonshu.
Yeah, and also they mentioned toward the end for the avatars. I think the avatars of the Innead, I think these are fake. I don't think these are the actual. I think the real gods are all entombed in these little statues. Because if you go to the closing scenes when the names are coming up and everything, there's like a little shot of Khonshu as that little statue, and then he's surrounded by a bunch of other little chalky like statues just like him. So I'm thinking that the real gods have been entombed by this cabal of whoever these avatars are.
That's an interesting theory.
Maybe they're gods themselves, but I think there are other gods besides Khonshu that they're getting out of the way for some purpose. And then circling back to a criticism in the trial scene, here again, just like the Eternals, here are these great, powerful beings that could be stopping all this crap that's been happening to poor little planet Earth. But they just, oh, well, these guys, they abandoned us, and we just decided we're just not going to get involved anymore. So, you've got, really, guys? The Eternals and you guys don't help us.
Yeah, everybody
Thor
wants to
the
just leave
only
us to our
one-
own devices. Yeah.
Thor is the only one who came down to Earth with his mighty powers to help us. So I think that I think that they're playing with something there. I don't think we're supposed to take that seriously. I think something else is going to happen with that.
All right. Wow, you've got a really set of spicy takes on the show, and you've got us working on a conspiracy theory that the whole panel can sort of take away from today's episode. So if you're listening out there in fandom land, yeah, like I said, the conversation is going to be incredibly interesting. Now that we've gotten all of the deep dive analysis out of the way, and we've wrung every drop of juice out of the sponge that is Moon Knight episode 4, I want to go around the table quickly and just get your 1 to 10 ratings, or whatever scale you use, champions, to decide where this episode falls. I'm going to start with Biz. How many little statuettes of Khonshu, 1 out of 10 statuettes, would you give this episode?
Like I said, yeah, I'll give it 9 out of 10. A very solid episode.
Wow. Okay, you're holding to your 9 out of 10.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, Grandmaster, 1 out of 10 portals. How many portals would you give this episode of Moon Knight?
8 portals, so 1 god is left out in the cold, but 8 out of 10.
So 1 god got left behind. All right. And Merv, how many gavels, how many judgments and court cases would you give 1 out of 10 for this episode?
I'm gonna stick with 8 gavels as well. It
Okay.
was great, but it was it's hard to rank them episode to episode. But I'm back on the page with this one. 8 out of 10.
Good. Great review. I think we're looking at a great episode, guys, but we got 2 more ratings to get in. Taylor, how many bagged soft drinks? 1 out of 10 bagged soft drinks. How many are you going to give it?
Well, first of all, I just want to tell Biz, I love your background there. It looks like the Sphinx is giving you a back rub, man. How does that feel?
He really got into it for this episode. I should have pointed that out. It's a great backdrop, Biz.
Rating. I'm going to give it 8 out of 10. It's very good, but yeah. Didn't think that Harrow would mention that your avatar is a psychopath in the courtroom there.
Yeah. I think we're all it's somewhat agreeing that the Egyptian pantheon scenes and their whole sort of Law and Order Egyptian Gods edition. This wasn't a great episode of that within this episode, but Lokismom, it comes to you to deliver on the final ratings, and I'm going to ask you how many sarcophagi, if that is the plural of sarcophagus, how many sarcophagi, 1 out of 10, would you give this episode?
8 very shiny sarcophagi.
New, right? These are the mint condition
like
ones.
King Tut version.
Yes, we want to put some shine on them. We're getting rid of all of the dust. All right. So, if you've been listening out there, this show continues to astonish us. It continues to surprise us. And the quality, despite some dodgy VFX here and there, and maybe a little 1 or 2 gaps in logic, we're still having a great time trying to unravel the mystery of Moon Knight and his various personalities and his relationship to this pantheon of gods. It's a really engaging show. And I think, me personally, I feel like they have raised the level once again, Disney, in terms of portraying an international locale with this episode. We've been to places in Europe with The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We've been to London before. We've been to different parts of the world with Disney Plus and the Marvel shows, but I think this is our first sort of true trip to some place that, feels, for lack of a better word, somewhat exotic and mysterious and unlike the traditional Western settings. But that being said, guys, it is time for us to leap into your favorite segment of this show, Cannon Fodder.
Cannon fodder.
If you're not familiar with the Cannon Fodder segment of the show, this is the point in the show at which we give 3 of the wildest Moon Knight random fandom theories that are circulating out in the ether. We give those to the panel, and we ask them to give us a buy, hold, or sell rating on these fandom theories. Now, at the end of the series, when we wrap up our review series, we are going to see how well the panel did against the fandom. But as of today's show, we're just going to go through the three of the spiciest ones. I think I picked out some good ones, guys. I'm going to give myself a pat on the back prematurely before unveiling them here. I will say, though, that I am going to start with a softball. So this one is just to get us warmed up. But Biz, you're going to open us up on Cannon Fodder today. And the question is, or the theory is, the third personality is Jake Lockley, as in the killer personality that we're seeing on the show. And that instead of being the typical cab driver / intel person that we see in the comic books, this Jake Lockley on the television show is a psychopath. Are you going to buy, hold, or sell that the third person is Jake Lockley and Jake Lockley is a psychopath?
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously they're pointing to like a third identity. If he's a psychopath, I'm not entirely sure about it. So I'll say halfway, like hold. I don't know. What are the options again?
You're gonna buy, sell, or hold.
Okay, right. Okay. Yeah. So I'll hold. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds like an aggressive hold. You're gonna be.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna buy that just yet, but I'm reserving my option 2 at some later point in time. All right.
And I'd like to just point out that this is not the first time either that Marvel has done like a kind of potentially 3 personality character. Like if anyone remembers Typhoid Mary from Daredevil.
Right.
Yeah. So, but she was a cool character too, so I like to point that out too. So
Yeah, you're right. No, it's totally in the Netflix series. This isn't their first foray into dissociative identity disorder. And Alice, I forget that actress's name, but she did a wonderful job with the performance in the series.
Yeah, definitely.
So
It's Alice Eve, right?
Alice Eve. Thank you, Taylor. Thank you, Taylor. So we've got our first hold. Hopefully the producer's keeping track of our ratings here. Grandmaster, you are up next. So the third personality is Jake Lockley, famous character from, or personality from, the comic books. And that Jake Lockley is a psychopath who may be sort of working counter to the goals of Stephen and Mark.
I'm gonna buy it. I mean, Mark Spector is a mercenary, is a guy who has killed people before, and even he didn't was shocked by what was going on. So yeah, I'm just gonna buy it. It's Jake Lockley. He's a psychopath. Buy.
Okay, solid buy. Moving on to Merv, what is your take on the third personality? Is it Jake Lockley? Is Jake Lockley a psychopath?
I'll buy it as well. If we're looking at it as Mark is like neutral, and then Steven is good, I could totally see Jake being far evil. You know what I mean? So
Indeed.
I'm gonna buy that one.
Yeah, I mean, something's got to be wrong with you to put a knife that deep into somebody. Taylor, jumping over to you. Jake Lockley is the third personality, and he is mentally unsound.
Okay, well, I've never read the Moon Knight comics, so I don't know if it's Jake Lockley or not, but I will buy that the third personality is something of a psychopath, because we've seen him kill a bunch of people. I just wanted to mention also, going back to the first episode, somebody I know mentioned the fact that if it was the third personality that made the date with the girl at the museum,
right,
he must have a British accent, because she still thought it was Stephen and didn't say what happened to your voice or anything. So I'm thinking he's a British psychopath, I guess, is what I'm buying. I'm buying that plan.
Okay, good catch. Good catch. Indeed. All right, that leaves you, Loki's mom, in terms of your buy, hold, sell rating on this theory that the third personality is Jake Lockley from the comic books, and he's no longer a mild-mannered cab driver who's got his ear to the streets, but instead he is a knife-wielding psychopath.
Well, unlike Taylor, I'm not that familiar with it, so just based on what I've heard so far, I would say, yeah, I'll buy it because they're going to have that third person's going to have to appear somewhere, be somebody, and since there's already a history of this Jake psychopath guy in the comics, then yeah, I mean, it seems plausible enough. I'll spend some money on it. But the thing though is, who is controlling Jake? Khonshu's controlling Mark and Steven, but who is controlling the psychopath?
Oh, okay. Once again, Loki's mom bringing new conspiracy level theory thinking to the show, in that perhaps another of the Egyptian gods is in control of this third personality who likes to murder a lot. Hey, it's all possible here, and we've got to buy. So it looks like we are bullish on this theory with the panel. We, again, will circle back at the end of the series to see how we did against the fandom and against the show itself. But right now, I'm going to move on to our second cannon fodder theory. Looking for your best ratings, guys. So fasten your thinking caps on. Make sure to get out your speculation details. Do your research on the stock. Starting this time with Loki's mom, we're gonna boomerang right back to you for. Well, let me set this one up in that. During the show, we hear Layla talk about the execution-style murder of her father at some point before the series started in Egypt. Seemed to happen on a dig. Her father was assassinated. He was an archaeologist. And the fandom theory that's been circulating about that is the deep-seated trauma that might have split Mark Spector's into these separate personalities, that he himself murdered Layla's father. Are you going to buy, hold, or sell that Mark is the murderer of Layla's father?
I'm going to hold on that one. That's interesting, but I haven't heard I haven't heard what you guys have said. So, I'm like the person who hangs out with, in the bar and listening to the other people handicap the horses. So that's, I'm going to hold it.
Okay, I think that's a sound strategy, given the theory itself. Grandmaster, we're going to jump to you next. Do you think Mark Spector murdered Layla's father?
I do, actually. And I'll tell you why. Because in episode 2, that was heavily hinted. When the two guys picked Steven up from his apartment. Steven was talking to Mark in the car mirror when they were looking on the laptop and say he was wanted for executing some guys at a dig site in Egypt. Well, that just fits. So again, I'm going to buy this one. I don't know if it was Mark Spector. It could have been Jake Lockley.
That's true. It could have been Jake Lockley.
But I'm going to buy that the body of Mark Spector, which personality it possessed at the moment, I don't know, did murder Layla's father. And that makes him not a liar in this episode, because he says it's not true that he had something to do with Layla's father's death. But if it was Jake, then that also would fit. Right. So I'm going to say Jake Lockley murdered Layla's father.
Okay, we got a strong buy and a hold. We're going to turn to Biz and see if you can turn the tide here. What is your rating for Mark murdered Layla's father? Buy, sell, or hold?
Yeah, I agree with Grandmaster. That he could have possibly killed Layla's father. I mean, like it's like the logic's there. Like you follow the evidence. I mean, well, the evidence in the show, so to speak. But but in terms of like it caused the what's it called, the multiple personality disorder, or this is whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I'm not sure if it caused that, but yeah, it does point that he murdered Layla's father, or his father-in-law, or whatever it is. Yeah, relationship status.
He not only murdered the poor girl's dad, but he murdered their relationship right along with it. All right, that's our second buy in this round of cannon fodder. Merv, you're up next. What do you think? Mark murdered Layla's father.
Maybe not Mark, but yeah, I'll buy that one of them. Whether it was intentional or not, definitely. I definitely think he's involved somehow, but I say bye for now. I also wanted to mention, this reminded me, whenever Mark switches over to Steven to get the map for the constellations, you see the back of their head. And I thought I noticed a scar on the back of his skull. Now, I could be wrong, but I wondered if, like, maybe that was the reason that he fractured his skull and several
trauma.
Personalities. Yeah, I just wondered if that tied in at all, or if I was just seeing things. It could have just been his hair ruffled, but I could have swore I saw a scar on the back of his skull. But I'm gonna buy that for sure.
All right, we've got a buy here, and listeners at home, we've got an eagle-eyed panelist in Merv who might have spotted some type of head trauma going on with Mark. So, you might have to scrub back on the episode. If the producer can get the actual time index in there, we will before it airs. But thank you for that, Merv. Taylor, moving on to you for our final for our final rating on this particular fan theory. Do you believe that Mark murdered Layla's father?
Just to change it up, I'm gonna sell. I don't think that's the direction they're gonna go.
An upset, ladies and gentlemen.
And we all know that Mephisto did it anyway.
That rascal.
Rascal.
All right, we've got a sell here. So we've got a mostly bearish panel on this particular fandom theory, guys. So hang in there, though. You're not going to miss this one. I saved the best for last. We're going to do our final round of cannon fodder with a theory that links Moon Knight to Thor and Thor Love and Thunder of all other MCU properties. And this one's a good one. I was on the Reddit subpages late last night doing my homework for this particular theory. And the theory works like this. We all know, I don't think that this is a spoiler, that the villain of Thor Love and Thunder is going to be none other than Gore the God Butcher and his Necro Sword. This theory states that Gore will slay the Innead, as in the Egyptian pantheon of gods, before this series is over. So we are going to have an appearance by Gore, the God Butcher, and the Egyptian pantheon will be assassinated by him. I'm going to start with you, Biz, to see if you are ready to buy, hold, or sell that particular theory.
Can I ask for more information in regards to that theory?
Yes, you can. Yes, you certainly can. So Gore, in case you're not familiar with Gore from recent Thor comic books, Gore is a god killer. I mean, there's no, or they call him the God Butcher, but he goes into different mythological pantheons of gods. He's murdered some Olympian gods. He's murdered Egyptian gods. He's murdered gods of all cultures, even from different planets. And I'm not going to spoil anything for Love and Thunder, but it is rumored that his killing spree will continue in the earlier stages of that movie. So this particular theory just states that enjoy the Egyptian pantheon while you can in Moon Knight, because and it kind of makes sense. Just hold on here, because I could see some people with some sell looks on their faces. But think about it, guys. We haven't seen one drop of promotional material from Thor Love and Thunder. And that might be because they had to finish out Moon Knight, because there could have been some kind of a tie-in between Gore coming after the Egyptian gods. We haven't seen one trailer. We haven't seen a still no voiceover. So I had to bring it to the panel to see what they would think. But given that context, Biz, do you think you can give us a rating?
Well, we have seen Kang in Loki, so there is that precedent. Yeah, that's interesting.
This one's hard to squash. It sounds ridiculous, but it's really hard to squash.
I'm gonna hold it, but
Wow.
I'm not there yet. But it's possible. Like, he's the God Slayer, so they're gods. So, like, yeah, I mean, it seems out there, but in a way, it's logical too. So that's why I'm holding.
Okay, we've got a brave man holding a somewhat outlandish theory, but let's jump over to Merv and see how you feel about this. Are you familiar with God the Gore Butcher from the comic books, or have you read anything about him?
Not really. I mean, I've had him described, and I've seen pictures of him in the Wikipedia and whatnot. But yeah.
Well, Christian Bale is going to give us our and Thor and the Norse pantheon are going to be, the subjects of his wrath in this upcoming movie that everyone's looking forward to. In the comic books, Gore puts all of his faith in a pantheon of gods for his own race, who let him down miserably, but then becomes empowered with the Necro Sword, which is what you would use to kill an immortal being. So, given all the context, given the discussion, given the dearth of promotional material for Thor: Love and Thunder, could it be possible that Christian Bale is going to make an appearance at the end of Moon Knight with an assassination of the entire pantheon?
I'm gonna sell it. Although if it does happen, I will be very excited because I just think that would be really cool. But I just don't see them working that in. But I think it would be an awesome introduction for an upcoming major villain for a film if they decided to go that route. I think it would be a good idea. But obviously it would have to fit the story. But for now, I think I'm going to sell it just because I don't really see them bringing Christian Bale in and getting him in all makeup just for like one scene at the end of the series.
Okay, before you submit your order, Merv, I'm going to give you one more chance. I mean, we haven't seen one frame of that promotional material. Are you sure you're going to sell?
Okay, well, I'm going to buy it then. Yeah, I guess I'll buy
it. No, it's okay if you want to sell.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm not sure why. I guess we haven't seen anything for it. Like, I don't know if other people aren't interested, but I'm always interested in a Thor movie, so I'm excited to see it, whether we see anything for it or not. But yeah, I mean, I could definitely see where you get the ideas that this could tie in. But like I said, if they do, it'd be great. But I gotta sell it right now.
Okay. And ladies and gentlemen out in fandom land, again, this is really one that's hard to squash, but I'm going to go to somebody who, if it is going to be squashed, he will make the call, the hard choice. Taylor, what is your feeling on this particular theory?
Well, I think the theory is a little bit too specific. Some of these fandom theories get a little bit down in the weeds. Like, I could buy that Gore is going to show up in this series at some point, maybe kill an Egyptian god, but the specific theory is he's going to show up in the last scene of the last episode and kill the entire pantheon of Egyptian. I mean, come on,
right.
Give me a little bit of leeway here to think this out, And I'm all about the god. I got a Necro sword, actually. I left it in the kitchen. I was chopping some onions earlier. But I will buy as far as there will be a reference or an appearance by the God Butcher.
Okay, that's a buy. Wow, upsetting the entire panel. We're going to move on to our next player in this theory. Grandmaster, it's up to you. Do you think Gore the God Butcher of Thor: Love and Thunder fame will show up in Moon Knight? And if he does, do you think he's going to assassinate the Egyptian pantheon?
I'm going to sell. I don't think they're going to show Christian Bale in the last scene of Moon Knight or in a post-credit scene or whatever. I just don't buy it. Sorry. I'm going to sell.
Thinking about that last episode of Loki, though, I just want to give you a chance.
I
The thing
understand,
that
but
happened,
Jonathan
Jonathan Majors showed
yeah,
up.
but Jonathan Major's paycheck is a little bit lower than Christian Bale's paycheck.
That's a good point.
But we know how dedicated Bale can be to these types of things.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
he'd do.
Well, if it does happen, I will be very, very happy. And I agree, it really fits. I mean, the last episode of Moon Knight drops in the week that the Doctor Strange movie comes out, and there's a high chance that the Thor: Love and Thunder trailer will be the post-credit scene, like the Doctor Strange first teaser was the post-credit scene for Spider-Man: No Way Home. So it does fit perfectly. I totally agree. Whether that means that Christian Bale will show up as God Butcher, I don't know. I don't think so. But if it does happen, I will be very happy.
Okay.
But I
Okay.
felt.
We've got a sell for now. Thank you, Grandmaster. And last but certainly not least, we've got Loki's mom. You know all the facts. You've heard all the discussion. You've got the benefit of the street coming to you with its best intelligence. What is your rating for this theory? Will Gore the God Butcher show up at the end of Moon Knight, and will one or more or the entire pantheon of Egyptian gods be decimated?
Yes, I will buy, because I'm done with these Eternals and these gods sitting on their fat asses and let planet Earth just be battered. I mean, by one after the other. And Loki, I mean, you know, they've got Loki out of the way for some reason. I don't know why, but yeah, I mean, it sounds plausible. It's wild. It's so wild. I'm going to buy it.
Okay. We've got a strong buy, and I think not only do you think it will happen, but I suspect that you want it to happen.
Oh yeah. Remember also in Loki, there's one of the things that's, you know, the remnants laying out there in the thing on the little whatever sliver of planet they're on is the Sphinx and a pyramid. If you remember, there's like you see it in the background when Mobius is driving around in that little pizza car. So there, and like you say, there's a Kang connection. Kang went back to ancient Egypt at some point with his time machine and pretended to be a god or a pharaoh or something. So yeah, I mean, there's deep Egyptian connections here.
You're really bringing the heat this episode, Loki's mom. You're really bringing the heat.
Damn, I should have waited.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just a lot of things that are. Remember, a lot of this stuff has to tie up somewhere. And so I'm thinking in terms of, like you say, how this series will affect the movie versions that are going forward. You know, so there's going to be, if not just directly tied, I think there's going to be like outlier things that will be important to the movie sagas.
Yeah. Well, I will say that if they do pull this off, it will be legendary in the superhero film genre. In terms of the level of interconnectivity between these series. But again, I saw this one and it stood out to me as something that I absolutely had to bring in front of the champions. So that concludes a scorching round of cannon fodder. We're going to jump into the next segment of the show, and we're going to do a quick lightning round. And that's where I go ahead and ask each. I put the panel on the spot with various topics and questions and things that I've observed about the episode and get their hottest takes on these questions. I'm going to start off with Biz, and I'm going to ask you, what do you think is the reason that Mark actually divorced Layla? Could it be about this murder as far as the dad goes, or were they really just having relationship issues? Because it seems like there's something more going on there.
Honestly, I haven't really thought about that much. Let's see. I'm just gonna put it down to just relationship issues. I guess it could
maybe
be
he
the
was
father,
just trying
but
to shield her from the DID and really was perhaps feeling some shame over that, his mental affliction.
That's pretty much. I think that's why he probably ultimately did that. I mean, I think that's it gave that kind of explanation that he had to get away from her because of that disorder that he has, right?
He
I'm
did
not
talk
entirely
about
clear.
that as a potential reason. I don't think he listed it definitively, but Grandmaster, what do you think? I see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, didn't he say he wanted to get away from her because Khonshu had his eyes on her?
Ah, yes. Okay, right.
I think he's divorcing her to protect her.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, something tells me that Khonshu probably doesn't respect those divorce decrees.
I agree, but that he wants to put distance between
Look, we're
himself and
divorced. You
Layla.
can't use her anymore.
He
It could
wants-
be that she's really annoying. Because that's how they presented her character very early on in the show, in terms of her being this constant antagonistic force. And I hate when they put women in that position where you just have to sort of be a contrarian the whole time, which is what made this episode really great with her.
Oh, and also, I'd like to mention something else. Like, it's going to be a bit awkward because it seems like there's an attraction developing between Stephen Grant and Layla, and then Mark. Well, how's that going to play out? There's like two different personalities and the same person's like, I like you now, but like I don't like you. I was like, what's going
Or
to
I
go
don't
on
like
there?
this other guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we'll see how it plays out. Thank you for your take on that, Biz. I'm going to jump to the Grandmaster now. Your question is, how can Mark free Khonshu without his powers? Khonshu seemed real confident. He was like, dude, free me. After I get imprisoned. How's that going to work?
I see two options. One, the psychopath comes in play. Jake Lockley.
Okay.
The other one is that the powers of Khonshu will transform to Layla, go to Layla, as we discussed earlier in this review show, because Mark Spector's body is flatlined. So I see two different options, but that's and the psychopath has probably the skills to free Khonshu and do everything without the Moon Knight suit, or the powers have been transformed to Layla.
Okay. And we also have Loki's mom's scorching hot take in that the psychopathic personality that we haven't met yet could also be controlled by yet another member of the Egyptian pantheon. So maybe you summon someone else's powers for the win to break Khonshu out. We already saw Mark make an alliance with Hathor, I think is the name of that goddess, the goddess of music, and she kind of gave him some clues before he left Egyptian law and order and broke out of there.
But would that other god's avatar not be at the trial? And how would that work if it was they were both controlling one body?
That's true. But we're just speculating here. I just feel like there's a bit of a gap here without having the powers and having to free Khonshu. There's probably going to be some whole ritual with some kind of artifacts and things like that you have to get together. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Thank you for that, Grandmaster. Merv, I've got a question for you. You may or may not be able to tackle this one, but we did see Gaspar Ulliel as the Midnight Man from the comic books. He's a bit of an art thief, kind of like an archaeological themed villain in the comic books. We know Gaspar tragically passed away, but do you want to see more of this character if they recast? Do you think they should expand on him, or should we just kind of file the Midnight Man away?
So again, I don't know much about like comic book version of him. In the episode, I thought he was fine as like a Biz said, a rich douchebag kind of,
Right.
But like I don't know, like as a character, it's not one that I'm necessarily like pining for. I don't need it necessarily. If it wants to be the, kind of a secondary antagonist throughout the rest of the series, or in the future, I would be fine if they recast it.
Okay.
But I also don't know, like, obviously maybe it wasn't fatal, but Moon Knight did like get him with one last shot as he was riding his horse into the
He
fog.
got him in the back with a crescent.
Yeah,
It's
you
true.
don't necessarily see him totally dead, and as we know from the series, like dead doesn't necessarily mean you're dead. You know, a god could have brought him back or something. But
Yeah. Good point, Merv. When you die in the Moon Knight world, that's when your biggest recruitment opportunity happens. That's
like
when
being
recruitment
drafted.
goes on. Yeah, exactly. So, good to hear your take on that. You know, I think it would be interesting to bring the character back. And again, you know, there's always these situations where a beloved character, you know, or an actor passes away, and then you're wondering what to do as far as a recast goes. But we'll see. I'm interested in seeing him again. So I'm glad you feel the same way. I've got a real head scratcher for you, Taylor. This one came to me in the dead of night as I was thinking about it. And I was like, you know, we've got this Egyptian pantheon of gods, but something is missing. I was like, haven't we been in the Egyptian pantheon of gods before in the MCU? And the goddess who is missing from this pantheon is Bast, the panther god, as in none other than Black Panther. That she is a member of the Egyptian pantheon of gods and goddesses. Do you think, you know, would you like to see Bast in this series of Panther cult fame?
Well, I did not know he was in the Egyptian pantheon of gods. But if he is, sure, I'd like to see him show up.
Yeah.
Don't think he will, but yeah, that's interesting. I did not realize that was related to the Egyptian gods. I thought it was a separate pantheon of gods. But yeah, no, if there is a link, sure, I'd love to see him make the connection.
And it makes the characters seem really kind of similar in that, and believe me, I didn't know it either. Wikipedia was my friend on this one when I went looking up all the Egyptian gods, and I was like, oh, there's Bast. And that being said, you know, Khonshu awards Mark Spector as, you know, he turns him into Moon Knight, and Bast, at least it's hinted in Black Panther, is responsible to some degree for giving, you know, to T'Chaka the power of the Panther. So we have characters that are getting these similar abilities from these otherworldly deities. So it would be nice to see some linkage and crossovers there if they can manage to do it.
Real quick, while we're on the subject of connections and crossovers, in this episode there was a reference to what's the place? Madripoor? Is that the
Madripoor? Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, it's the only connection to the greater MCU so far.
Yes, first one.
I actually like that in the show, that they don't connect it that much to the other.
Right, they're not beholden to it.
They can still do that with Dane Whitman and Blade and Werewolf by Night and everything that's coming. So
yeah. But Taylor, you certainly get the gold
that,
star for bringing that reference to the table. Biz, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I totally missed that. Like, in what capacity did I mention Madripoor?
I think Mark and Layla were talking, and they just said something about since the incident in Madripoor, something to that effect.
Anton mentioned it.
It was Anton, yeah.
Oh, it was Anton, okay.
Yeah, the last time he had seen Layla, they were both in Madripoor.
Oh, okay, right, fair enough.
Yeah. And that fits very well because we know that Madripoor has this black or gray market for stolen antiquities and art that we saw in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So logical tie-ins, a very small reference, probably there for us hardcore fans. But yeah, once again, Taylor, awesome that you remember that, because it would have been tragic if we let this review episode go by without mentioning that connection. My last question goes to you, Lokismom, and it's a bit of a metaphysical stinger. A lot of fans, and this goes into a little bit of speculation, but would you buy into the idea that this whole series is a Newhart style hallucination that Mark Spector is having because he's actually dying? You know, I thought this would be up your alley since you're the one to bring the hottest takes. Could he be on the barge of the dead, you know, heading to the underworld for his second life?
Well, The metaphysical part, I'm not too sure about. I mean, I think I think what we're seeing here with a lot of these MCU stories, is this idea that the metaphysical overlaps into the physical, which is our world, which is the world we're living in. You and I and all the panel is living in right now. But these metaphysical things that we seem to know about because we've written so much about it throughout our histories, in our cultures and everything, and there are many stories, and yet there are many overlaps and everything. There are many things that they share in common. So we wonder about that. Now, if I've screwed up your head enough, I don't think that's really where they're going. I think they just like to play with that because you kind of get dangerous here. I'm going to bring out something here because it just jumped out at me. Now, where did Loki and Sylvie and all of them wind up with Alligator Loki and all the guys? What was that called? What was that place called?
The void at the end of time.
The void.
Yes,
the
the
void.
void.
At the end of time. The Pantheon, the Innead, they exist in what's called the outer void, because they make direct reference to, I think, the guy with the suit on and
during the trial, this
nerdy
void,
looking guy.
another void was mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's an outer void here. I'm getting an echo here. I'm hearing the outer void. Okay, it's gone now. So yeah, I think they like to play around with these metaphysical, supernatural with Doctor Strange. We have different words for it. What's the other one? Paranormal. They play around with that, with these things, and how these things very much exist in our imagination. And God knows there are people out there now who are actually believing things that are so ridiculous. They're talking about it on the internet and about people who really aren't dead and all that. So there are people who definitely believe all this stuff. And where's all this stuff coming from? And so is there a reality that they're seeing that we're not? I don't know. And then here we're getting into this idea of multi-dimensions. Are we phasing in and out of dimensions here and everything? I mean, I'm wondering how all this is going to play into this next phase that I think Feige and the guys have dedicated themselves to, which I think is going to be weird and wild, and I'm up for anything that they're ready to do. So what was the question?
I think you tackled the question quite thoroughly. Mark Spector may be on some type of a vision quest, and his vision is the series that we're seeing now. I knew I asked the right player in terms of that particular question.
May I say, he is probably in an insane asylum in London somewhere.
Could be wearing a straitjacket. We did see some straitjacket action in some of the promotional materials. But that being said, thank you guys for weighing in on these questions and doing a deep dive and some analysis on the series with me. I want to take any closing remarks before we close out the review show. Anybody else have anything else to add?
They should have put Spider-Man on the pantheon of Egyptian gods.
Yes.
He would have had the sense to feel what's going on.
Right. He could have used his spider sense.
Yeah,
wait a minute, guys.
He would have said the Spidey gods.
Danger.
I'm the spider god. Well, hold that thought because Sony may make a movie about it.
They make a movie about everything.
I do want to say the coordinates for Amit's tomb is a real coordinate point on Egypt and Libya's border. I got curious, so I looked it up, and it's like 29 north, 25 east. And if you look it up, it's just the middle of nowhere on the border of Egypt and Libya. And I'm like, I wonder if it's really there. I'm not close enough to find out.
I think there's a Denny's there right now.
Harrow's
having a grand slam in between digs.
Why didn't they just go? Wouldn't there be an app for that? Why did they have to do the whole Skype?
I saw some chatter about this on Twitter about this whole app and how you could have just looked this up, but they were in the middle of the desert, and assuming that they didn't. Yeah, they assuming they had no Wi-Fi, no fancy sat connection. Khonshu basically did, the ancient world's version, the supernatural version of GPS, and I was totally cool with it.
Yeah, freaked everybody on planet Earth out.
They used all their data points up.
Yeah, they so, but yeah, that did come up, a lot of people, and that I feel like if it was just like, oh, we've got Wi-Fi or sat out here in the desert and I'm just going to look it up, that feels like a CW level contrivance, right? Like what's that kid's name? Rico, the guy who's always got the answer by looking it up. I forget that guy on the Flash. Cisco. There we go. Cisco.
Cisco. Yeah.
He would have come out of nowhere and been like, "Yeah, I know exactly where it is. It's right next to the Denny's over there by the border."
Libya.
Near Libya.
In fact, that's where the My Pillow guy gets his cotton, right? To make the Giza dream sheets or whatever.
Indeed. All right, guys, we're not supposed to be getting political on this show. People out there in fandom land.
He's just a con man who sells sheets. He's not a politician.
Well, some people have a great respect for the My Pillow man, so we're going to leave that for another discussion, everyone. That being said, I've had a great time. I hope the panel has enjoyed their time here, and I hope you guys who are listening out there in fandom land have been enjoying the discussion as much as we have. I want to take this opportunity to close out our show by saying you can find us on any of the major social media channels that are out there: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you name it. Look for the Podcast of Champions. You can also catch us on our awesome discussion forum at sakar.freeforums.net. Jump on that board today, create an account. It's a great community. Talk to people there. We're talking about everything: Lord of the Rings, Fox movies, Sony movies, Marvel movies, DC movies, and just general film and television and streaming discussion goes on there as well. So if you're looking to do something with a couple of free hours of time that you might have, we'd love to have you here on the show and on the message board. And as always, be safe out there. Take care of yourself. Be happy. And thank you for joining us.